In a world where freedom was a dream whispered in the dark, one woman chose silence, shadows, and unthinkable suffering to protect her children and her dignity. Her name was Harriet Jacobs. Born into slavery in Edenton, North Carolina, around 1813, Harriet's early years were filled with an innocence rare for someone in bondage. Her first mistress treated her kindly and taught her to read and write, a dangerous act of compassion in a time when literacy for the enslaved was forbidden. But when her mistress died, Harriet's fragile peace shattered. She was only 12 when she was handed over to Dr. James Norcom, a cruel man who saw her not as a child, but as his property. Norcom pursued Harriet relentlessly. He whispered threats, made unwanted advances, and promised punishment if she ever resisted him. Harriet refused to be broken. She wrote later, "No matter how fair the promises of a master, in the end, the condition of a slave is hopeless." To protect herself, she formed a relationship with Samuel Sawyer, a white lawyer who promised to help her gain freedom. Together, they had 2 children, Joseph and Louisa. But Norcom's rage only grew. He threatened to sell Harriet's children away. She realized there was no safety, no peace, no mercy under his control. And so in 1835, Harriet made a desperate choice. She ran, but her escape did not lead to freedom. Instead, it led her into hiding, into a secret place barely large enough to breathe. Behind her grandmother's small house was a shed. Above it, a crawl space, 9 feet long, 7 feet wide, and only 3 feet high. That dark, airless space became Harriet's world for the next 7 years. 7 years in an attic where she could not stand. 7 years without sunlight, her body twisted by pain, her skin scarred by insects, her spirit kept alive only by love. Through a tiny hole she drilled into the wood, she could glimpse her children playing outside. They laughed, ran, and grew, unaware that their mother was watching, only a few feet above them, hidden in the shadows. The summers were unbearable. The air turned thick and suffocating, the heat pressing down like fire. In the winters, the cold pierced through the boards, freezing her limbs until she could barely move. Yet Harriet endured. I suffered for my children, she wrote, more than I can express. I would have chosen death rather than to have them suffer what I suffered. For 7 years she waited. She read old newspapers, sewed clothes, and prayed for freedom. Her grandmother, the strong and faithful Molly, kept her secret, feeding her, protecting her, and never losing hope that one day Harriet would walk free. In 1842, that day came. With the help of friends and allies, Harriet finally escaped to the north. She traveled by boat to Philadelphia and then to New York City, where she was reunited with her children. At last, she could breathe open air again. But Harriet's fight did not end with her freedom. She soon discovered that the North, while free, was not always welcoming. The fugitive slave law meant she could still be captured and returned to the South. It wasn't until years later, when her employer bought her freedom, that she was truly safe. In 1861, Harriet Jacobs published her story, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, under the name Linda Brent. Her book revealed the brutal realities faced by enslaved women, especially the sexual exploitation they endured. It was one of the first personal accounts by an enslaved woman to be published, and it shook the conscience of America. Her words were raw, honest, and revolutionary. She showed that the fight against slavery was not just about chains and whips. It was about mothers torn from children, women stripped of dignity, and the quiet courage of those who refused to surrender their humanity. After the Civil War, Harriet dedicated her life to helping others. She opened schools for newly freed Black people, provided aid to refugees, and continued to speak out for justice until her death in 1897. Harriet Jacobs spent 7 years hidden in an attic, trapped in darkness. But when she emerged, she lit a fire of truth that continues to burn more than a century later. Her life was a testament to a mother's love, a woman's resilience, and the unbreakable will to be free. 7 years in an attic, all for freedom, all for her children, and for the generations who would one day read her words and understand that even in the deepest darkness, the human spirit can still rise.